everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Global podcast. And today we're here with Zinn. And Sandy, thank you so much for joining our podcast all the way from New Jersey. How's life over there these days?
My pleasure, sir. Life is interesting as it is all over the world. Staying busy, trying to stay safe, and looking forward to our chat today for sure.
And that's what matters to me most, staying safe. I know like everyone is probably, in getting close to Christmas now. Everyone's like, we're picturing themselves, it will be over by Christmas. I know I was thinking that for sure. I was like, Norway will be fine like by fall, like that was always my thought process. And now we're still here, it's still going on, but, adapt or die. But we're still keeping the podcast going, and we've been doing that since April. And today, we're going to talk about a little bit about like how you're going to carve your way to the top, with Sandy. And Sandy, why don't you just share a little bit about yourself, your background and experience, so our viewers, our listeners get a little bit better sense of who you are.
Sure. First, thanks for having me today. It's been great getting to know you and following what you guys are doing in Sport and Global and your podcast. It's fantastic. I've always been involved in sports ever since I was in school back in college. Right. When I discovered that maybe I could pursue a career working in sports. Right. But it's been about 30 years, 25 years professionally, ESPN, Major League Baseball, and now starting my own business. So it's my third career, so to speak.
Nice.
So it's been pretty interesting, especially starting it and building it during a pandemic.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but I'm anxious and excited about putting all my experiences that I've gained over the past 25 years, Major League Baseball and ESPN, and right. Seeing what I could build on my own and working with people really around the world, hopefully. Right.
And I mean, like you've been working with like, some major organizations over the last, years. And I think like, one of the cool things is like, you just like, going out of that, I guess, comfort zone and like, okay, let me start from scratch. And I mean, like, of course we're in very different positions. Like I literally just came out of school and like started my business. Of course, like I had some minor experience, but not as nearly as you did. But I mean, like it must be also like a quite, different sort of mentality, I guess, like, going from like that comfort zone to like starting a business, and especially in this time, like what were some of the stuff that were like running through your mind when you were like, okay, let me do this? What was the thought process behind Zinn Sports?
I feel very similar to when I first walked into the campus radio station at Rutgers in New Jersey.
Right.
In 1991, 92, around there.
Right.
In that it's very fresh, and I know I'm going to learn a lot. Now I'm just able to put all those experiences to use. Confidence is a big thing.
For sure.
We've discussed relationships and building those and maintaining those.
Yeah.
And so while the work is new and kind of learning the ropes of being an entrepreneur is new.
Right.
Using the experiences of not only being out in the field and working, but meeting people, running projects, gaining experience. You can't be afraid to learn. I think that's the most important thing, matter where you are in your career, whether you're at school starting out or established 25 years down the road.
100%.
You're gonna continue to learn. And evolve.
Absolutely.
And so, I think that's important to embrace that.
And as you said too, like you sort of like build the foundation, of like, your network, your, experience, and that also gave you, a solid benchmark to kind of like, okay, I know, kind of like the steps I have to take. And what's essentially new is, that entrepreneurial journey, but how the industry works, a lot of people already. So you kind of like build a solid ground. And I think also that's very important for whatever you're going to do. It's like building that foundation, even if it's like, you're still in school, it's like, okay, start early, we're going to talk a little bit about that moving on as well. And there's one thing I just got to comment on, that's your Swedish Aik jersey, like it was almost like I didn't like wanted to put you into this podcast now, as a Norwegian, that hurts me a little bit, but I'll let it slip.
I understand. And, I like to say ignorant American a lot, when things like European soccer or football come up.
Right.
It would be similar to maybe you wearing a Red Sox jersey as me as a Yankee fan in New Jersey.
Exactly.
So I understand that, but I did want to represent the global game. And,
it is a great. I appreciate that, but like as the struggle like Norway, Sweden has, I'm like, oof, that hurts a little bit. But we'll make sure you get like some Norwegian stuff.
That you're still able to smile and laugh about it is key.
No, of course, it's like a love-hate relationship, between Norway and Sweden. So I wouldn't take it too far, but we always have to comment on it,
When you send me the Norway jersey, I will be wearing that.
That sounds way better. All right, so let's move on a little bit. So why don't you talk a little bit about like how your career in the sport industry actually began? Like how did you essentially enter the industry? Because there's so many ways, and I guess like just sharing your story of like when did that opportunity open up, and how did you take that opportunity, more or less?
Yeah. So after college, I really wanted to get into radio. Sports radio was very popular. I graduated in 1994, and sports radio became incredibly popular, especially in the New York area in the mid-late 80s. And so when I finally realized, okay, let me try to do something sports related, I focused on radio a lot in college. I earned a journalism degree, so I was able to write as well, gave me a little flexibility. But I got my foot in the door at ESPN for $7 an hour, answering phones and taking scores. And I worked at SportTechie, which was ESPN's wire service for 20 years.
Nice.
And we ran the bottom line with all the scores. And now you see that on every channel that you see. But we mastered that.
That's cool.
And so a lot of what I did as a part-timer right out of school was taking scores from all different sports from all over the world, to update that bottom line of the database and all our customers and that kind of thing. So right away, it was very cool because it was heavy sports, it was fast-paced.
Yeah.
And I was able to kind of get my foot in the door, and that's, to me, that, I wasn't graduating from Harvard Business School. I had to, I got a good degree, but when you start in sports, you kind of have to make your own way and figure yourself out. And so that was big for me, getting my foot in the door in there. And then SportTechie had a heavy editorial presence, and I was able to join the editorial crew a couple of years after I started. And started writing, and ended up taking over the golf beat and was a golf writer for several years, and traveled to the Olympics a couple of times, and traveled the world and got to experience really a bunch of different sports and events that I never thought I would really see or learn about. Editing Iditarod stories and following short track speed skating, and some fantastic events that you don't think you're going to really pay attention to, really. And so that was a great 10 years, a lot of writing, a lot of editing, a lot of stuff up here, kind of perfecting my craft, helping manage a newsroom and working on the journalistic craft of finding news and facts and putting a story together and things that I've been able to use even down the road. So that was my start with ESPN, and it really blossomed into something that, again, having your mind open to the possibilities I didn't think that I would be covering the golf beat, but I did, and to be inside the ropes while Tiger Woods is winning U.S. Opens.
That must be really special, though.
It's hard to compare those experiences.
Yeah.
And again, it was just getting my foot in the door, having an open mind, being aggressive. Something's offered to you, and you're interested.
Take the opportunity, right?
Don't be afraid. Yeah. So ESPN was the big one to me, and I think still to this day, it's the most fun I've had at a job.
Right.
But yeah, that's how I got my start. Really, and it's funny, when I graduated school, computers were really just starting to become more popular and mainstream. So I answered an ad in the newspaper to get my job, which you can appreciate for what you do.
Right.
And so that's how long ago that was. But I was aggressive. I was every day. I was looking. I was seeing what I could do, and I was lucky enough to just like I said, get a chance.
Right, but you also worked hard to obtaining that opportunity. You did some work during college, for your school as well. Just taking that first step, and being okay, what kind of value can I bring, to the sport industry? And then of course, you have to actively seek it, and not just, it's right there on your doorstep. I think that's something a lot of students are maybe expecting, that, it's just gonna a job offer is just gonna pop out of the blue. But in fact, you're just gonna put down that effort, being willing to, look for it, go for it and find it, and as you said, being a little bit maybe aggressive, in a sense of okay, what can I do? And is this an opportunity for me? And then once you get in, it's a lot more options to also, go from your starting point to whatever journey you want to be inside the sport industry as you have done.
Yeah. I use the hustle parallel all the time, as long as you're talking about sports. The athletes that hustle the most put themselves in the best positions to succeed. Yeah. And I don't think working in sports is any different. The more you hustle, better chance you have to succeed. And part of the hustling is it's not only the knowledge that you gain or the specific skill sets that you build. Right. It's also the relationships. They fall into that hustle. The more you hustle the way you and I do, the more you're able to meet people in these kinds of settings and expand your network. For sure. Which can only help you. So, I'm very big. When I graduated, I wanted to stay focused on knowing as much that's going on in the sports world as I can, so that whatever skills I had, I could then apply that knowledge. Right. And so I think that the more you hustle and pick up those things and learn, the better off you're going to be. No, and that starts when you're in school. You don't roll out. You should start with it right away. Yeah. So start those experiences as soon as you can.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I always say to people, when I talk about the business, and I said the work I put down in school, with building relationships, the mentors that I got, the advisors that we got early, it's not I planned these people are going to be my advisors and these people are going to be my mentors. It's not I planned that out, but the work I put down and built that foundation, that has helped me so much in my journey as an entrepreneur and starting my own business in the sport industry, because I put down all that, hard work of getting the knowledge, learning to get to know people better, building key relationships in the industry and building a foundation, as you've done. Of course, I had to speed run it a little bit, considering you've been 30 years in the industry before you started your company, and I've been 5, 6 before that. But it's still at the same, the point, you have to build that foundation, and you can do it even if you're in school. And I think people got to understand that is don't wait until I'm graduating. Now your time to do that. Do it when you're literally on your first day of school. Who can I learn from? What kind of internship, volunteering opportunities can I take? Who should I speak with? And just be open, as you said too. But I wanted to like dive a little bit more into like, you working for obviously, ESPN, Major League Baseball. What has been some of the key learning elements that you learned along the way, like so far, and that you have used now, into your entrepreneurial journey?
I think the number one thing, and it stems from the relationships, is understanding most of us that are out in the business world work as part of a team.
Right.
It's very rarely where you're just in your own head. Even when I was writing, you rely on your editor, news manager, you're relying on sources, and there's so many people involved in writing a story.
Right.
Then when I'm managing technology, there's so many people that go into running an interface. There's all the people that are responsible for the infrastructure and everything that goes involved into that. And so, I think the number one thing is really getting that team aspect. And again, using the sports analogy, I'm a big baseball guy. So,
right.
I always like to say, if I'm playing shortstop, you play another position. Don't try to play shortstop. It's the same in the workplace.
Yeah.
We all have to work together to get a job done, and you want to communicate and make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing to better the team. So,
sure.
And that I think that takes a little time unless you've done it in school, as we've talked about.
Right.
The best parts of school for me were the things the hands-on experience I got, whether it was at the radio station or interning at the TV station and filming bike races and that hands-on stuff where you're meeting athletes or troubleshooting technology. Those are the things that you're going to need to perfect down the road.
Right.
Those are the things. I can't tell you what I learned in a class. Maybe in a writing class or a broadcasting class, probably.
Right.
But those hands-on things that you touched on, that we've spoken about, those are the critical things that you keep building on the foundation that you bring from job to job to job.
Right.
Looking into the future, the beginner faces a choice that leads him to the triumph, or not. Being surrounded by like-minded professionals can be the best guarantee that you actually take that crucial career step.
SportTechie Global is a digital network for sports jobs. It gives you the chance to be involved in the sports industry no matter who you are, regardless of gender, nationality, and experience.
Our AI system matches up talent with human resources. Candidates who align with the company's values and needs immediately get shortlisted. It saves time for HR and increases the opportunities available to applicants.
The platform identifies tailor-made recommendations based on user needs, so you're always aware of the possibilities out there right now.
SportTechie Global is a place where students gain key tips about jobs and build the valuable connections that are essential for people at the beginning of their career path.
The path from candidate to champion starts with a single step in the right direction. Sign up to SportTechie Global.
SportTechie Global, the best way to enter the sports industry.
Right, and then you just continuing enhancing them, enhancing the skills, fine-tuning them, and getting, as a, sort of almost like a specialist or expert in those kind of things, and bring them with you for whatever, journey or venture that might be, whether that's, working for a new company or even like starting your own. I wanted obviously to talk a little bit about, you've been involved heavily in sort of like the data side of things too. And it's also been a vital key over the last few years and will be a very important part moving forward. And obviously, we know how much data is outside there, right? It's like tons of it. And everyone's like, oh yeah, like collect the data. It's just like collecting. And now we're just like, well, it's not just about having the data. It's about how do you pick out the most important thing? How do you use the data? And from your side, like, how do you create value out of the data, and what should sort of like new students think about, when they're moving into the sports data field? Like, what are some of these, like, key stuff that they're like, how can they start building that foundation essentially? If they think about, okay, I want to like focus on sports data, I want to like try to like learn those mechanisms.
Yeah. That's something definitely that's blossomed, you know, I think internationally, especially here in the States, is that you can now focus on sports data and sports data classes and its applications, which I think is fantastic. That's something like when I was, you know, coming up, you learned maybe through a macroeconomics class and then applied sports to it. But now you could actually study sports data and analytics and all that. And I think, as you know, it's something that's here. It's here to stay. You know, what particular sports industry you're in and how you use it is different, but understanding how the data tells your story of your job or your industry or your sport, your event, whatever the case is, understanding how, you know, what the data says and how it applies is key. You know, you could collect millions of rows of data in a spreadsheet, but if you don't know how to apply it, the athlete or the game or the match, it's a waste. So, you know, I think, you know, understanding again how it, you know, the data is supposed to make a difference. So how are you going to actively apply it to your sector, I think is key.
And I mean, like a way to maybe start there too is like reach out to people that have those kind of jobs, you know, and like ask them, like if you're interested in baseball, like talk with some like sports analysts, you know, data analysts in baseball teams, in the league, maybe, you know, ask them like, what do you do? What are the most important data that you're collecting? And also make up your own, I guess, like opinions on like, okay, what other type of data might be interesting for them and how. Maybe there's data out there. I mean, like, I would assume there's data there that they have, but they're not utilizing in the best possible way because people haven't thought about that as an option. And that's where new thinking and innovation and like the young students that have a different perspective can come in and say, hey, have you ever thought about utilizing this data for this, you know? But then first learn from the people that are, you know, what they're working on right now. So you don't like, have you ever thought about this? And they're like, well, we're already doing that. You know, like,
I think it's really important to understand, have humility in that other people know a lot, but have confidence in yourself that you bring your own style. So we all have our own styles that are really probably conglomerations of a lot of different styles that we've interpreted and absorbed over the years, whether it's our parents, or siblings, or friends, people in the industry, whatever the case is. We have certain styles that we've developed from the influences that we've had. So, you know, the beauty of now 2020 and beyond in the sports industry and sports data is that it's out there every day. There's a story out there every day. You can read your own sport metrics, how they're being used within your own sport, really, and then develop your own style and how you would apply it. And so I think that's critical. What you said is to learn, and that's what it's all about.
Absolutely,
is that, you know, we have to continue to evolve with the data, which ultimately is the technology evolving. And there's so much technology out there that you know, you have to just be open to learning, as we say all the time.
Knowledge is key, you know, like it comes back to the foundation. We always talk about network, experience, and knowledge. It's the pillars, you know, it's the pillars for success. But let's talk a little bit about like the Zinn Sports Group, because obviously, you know, you're like a little bit, what are some of the stuff that you guys are working on and working with, and you also have a great opportunity coming up soon. I mean, like we're already kind of like helping you guys, you know, looking for some great people in Leipzig, and you're going to work like a Champions League match. Like, what are some of the tasks that they are going to do? And what are some of the focus that Zinn Sports Group is working on?
So what I love is that we have a lot of different focuses right now. Certainly technology and data is a big one. And that comes from my time at Major League Baseball and everything I did there. And, you know, running all of our ball and player tracking. And I think I was very lucky to be where I was for all those years because
For sure.
I just continued to grow. And baseball was a big trailblazer in that regard. And so what Zinn Sports Group does is we take the baseball blinders off and we're able to kind of work with all sports and all technology vendors and really get their technology out there, whether they need to find the market or the market needs to find the technology. We're kind of in the middle, making sure that those products, A, work and B, make sense in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And then C, kind of tell their story. So, so we work with a vendor that does couple that do football player tracking.
Yep.
And so one of them has a new portable system that we set up around the pitch in Champions League, tracks all the players and the ball, and they're able to use it, kind of feed the clubs, the data, the metrics, go back and they can watch the video and all that stuff. So it's very behind the scenes. It's not very glamorous, but
it's very important.
It speaks to what we talked about earlier in working in your team, doing what you need to do to kind of build that out and let that final product really shine. So we're thrilled with how it's been going. We found someone in Leipzig, so thank you. I'll have to pull that ad down now that we were a success. But it's been going really well. It's been thrilling for me to meet so many people from around the world. Yourself, people in Russia and France and Spain and Italy, and I mean, pretty much anywhere we've had a Champions League match, we've been able to hook up with people and meet them. And
that's awesome.
It's the universal language of sports is amazing. And that project has kind of opened my eyes even more to it. So yeah, that the Champions League thing is very tech oriented and definitely a lot of communication and teamwork and supporting people from thousands of miles away while they're out at the stadium. And so that it's been great. We're looking forward to kind of continuing it, the next round once we get through the stage.
Yeah, it's exciting times ahead. And of course, like with more sports back on its feet, slowly, gradually happening, the more work you will be able to do and collect whatever the vendors with the teams in the market. So that's going to be very exciting to follow for sure. So we're actually starting to wrap up to the end now. It's been a fruitful conversation so far, and we always have this final question. I guess we always talk about, and we've been already giving a lot of advice. You've been giving some, talking about hustling, talking about finding the value and putting down the effort. At the end of the day, so. Talking a little bit about what tips, just if we're going to wrap this up here, what tips, do you have for students that are trying to get their foot in the door? What foundations needs to lay to ground, in order to succeed in this industry? How are you essentially going to carve your way to the top, which is the topic? So what do you see as if you could say 3-4 things is this should be your focus. This should be how you, your key points to succeed. What would it be?
Yeah, I always think of what would I do if I was 19? Right. That's what would I do if I was 19? Throw away freshman year maybe because you're just But, I think that I would kind of treat college like I was the CEO of my own business and my business was me. And we're speaking specifically about getting involved in sports. So once you're focused on that, treat college like you're the CEO of Zinn Sports Group or Olay Sports Group or whoever you are, and treat it like it's a job. So there's so many things right now you could do when you're a student and work in sports, right? I mean, there's incredible, especially with technology, with all the social media and everything that goes on. There's an incredible amount you can do. So get those experiences. Do as much as you can.
Yep.
I had an internship during a summer session, and I worked at a local cable TV station for 2 months. And I went to horse races and bike races, and it was like I had a job.
Right.
I got credits, towards school and towards classes, but I treated it like it was a job. So those relationships were important to me. Learning from the people that were there or veterans or weren't students.
Right.
Have humility. Humility is a huge thing. Understand
Absolutely.
you don't know everything, and that other people know more than you. And
that's fine.
I think I have wisdom, and wisdom comes with experience and age.
Yeah.
Wisdom isn't something that you're born with or have, and you're 20. You got to put in the time to gain the wisdom.
I agree.
And so lean on the wisdom, lean on people that you meet and their wisdom, and then gain the hands-on experience. Like I said, you're the CEO. Treat college like you're the CEO. Right. You'll have to do some schoolwork, unfortunately, and but it's about
that's part of the CEO role.
100%. Part of the CEO role. So a lot of CEOs are hungover during meetings. So you want to treat college like it's a work experience. A lot of it is training yourself on how to think, how to study, how to think, training your brain. And you do that with those experiences. If you know you want to work in sports, work in sports. Start right there. There's no better place than doing it at school.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a perfect way to end this podcast with, Sandy. It's some really great advice. At the end of the day, it comes down to like your mindset, being ready, putting down the effort, hustling, and being humble. I think like those two, like for me as well, is like, of course, putting down the effort, but be respectful of people that have been in the industry for a long time. And of course, like come up with new ideas, be innovative and be, creative, but be respectful and be humble over like the opportunity, and take the opportunity that are out there. So I completely agree. I really align with it. And with that, Sandy, I would like to thank you so much for taking the time for being part of the podcast. I think it's been a great conversation. I wish you all the best with the Zinn Sports Group. And we're going to stay in touch, and we'll update what's going on in a few months or sometime in the future. We might have to do a second podcast to see what's going on. See if the wisdom has improved.
Yeah, I would love it. Oh, it was my pleasure. I really appreciate connecting, and flattered that you wanted to speak with me and talk about my experiences, and I enjoyed it. So thanks a lot.
Absolutely, Sandy. It was a pleasure having you. And with every video podcast that we do, we always finish with "Vi snakkes," which means see you later in Norwegian. So now you know some Norwegian.
Beautiful. Well, catch you later.
Sounds good, Sandy. All right.
All right. Speak to you soon. Thank you.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.